And again, I'm not saying I know for sure that's what it is, guys, but I'm just saying it does leave me with the impression that there's something up there, and this light source is meant to obfuscate it.
I think they're really, it's again, we know that, listen, we've had the Pentagon already admit that geoengineering's going. It's now full disclosure that chemtrails are chemtrails. They're not contrails, they're chemtrails.
Right.
And, we had a subscriber, which we'll get to with D3, on the issue of solar density. We're seeing things, Steve, that at what point do you just simply get your head out of the sand and say something's up?
Yep. And here's what's supposed to be two distinct upper and lower jet streams has turned into just a mess.
What level are we at?
250.
250.
Yeah.
Wow, look at the, go back to the west. Go west. There you go. Look at that one right up there, going up by South America.
This one here?
The one below it.
This one here?
Yeah, follow that. That is, when we start seeing oscillations like that,
well, it's a clear breach between the northern and southern hemispheres. So basically the southern hemisphere is joining the upper hemisphere, and that is not supposed to happen.
So keep moving west, Steve. Move west a little bit, because I want to show everyone what's happening here, right there, right where your mouse is at. Look at that, folks. That is a breach. That is air coming up from the southern hemisphere breaching into the northern hemisphere. There is a buffer zone. Yeah, we understand that. We get that.
There used to be a buffer zone.
Yeah, it used to be. and folks, all I got to tell you is next week it's going to be getting cold here in the United States again.
Not that it isn't already super duper cold, right?
Well, tomorrow. All right, so we got slammed yesterday with a little freak snow event. So tomorrow they're expecting highs into the 60s.
I know. We're supposed to get really warm here in Boise, too. It's just so strange.
So when we talk about the solar density, I know BP did a good one on there explaining what the problem is with that. But what we're dealing with here is that when we start seeing low wind speeds, solar speed coming off of the sun, that allows cosmic rays to penetrate our atmosphere, Steve. This, by the way, causes problems for cardiac people who have pacemakers. It can also, we're finding out now that it has other effects on the human body as well. Seizures of the mind, brains, when we know that like epileptics in those type of cases. So we're understanding, and we have a coronal hole facing right at us, right? You would think it would be just the opposite.
Right, and that's the thing that kind of perplexes me a little bit. But look at this chart here that shows the density, and look at that spike that just happened a few hours ago, man.
Look at that.
That is, I've never seen that before.
So let's explain
look at the solar wind. And you can see the solar wind's been going from 350 down to, again, it goes in these bursts. But again, I've never seen the chart where it just has areas where it's just blanked out.
And if you go back to the solar wind speed on that, when you get below 290, folks, I mean, that's like being out on a lake and having a very gentle breeze. It shouldn't be doing that.
So I don't understand how my solar velocity, wind velocity can be low, but my density can be so freaking high.
Because you got a second stream coming in.
That's the point. And see, I'm not trying to steer this data. I'm just saying, what would cause there to be more density when my sun has got lower solar wind velocity? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to ask a question like that.
Well, Steve, when we were talking, everyone remembered the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. And remember when she first got the first signal from the Vegans that came in, what was very odd that what they thought was an audio signal was actually a back carrier wave of a video signal that was a back carrier wave of hard, printable data. What
I know,
if?
right? Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so what if we're seeing the same effect here of a brown dwarf that's sitting in the background, maybe more than one, and what we're seeing is the vampire star effect, is that it's been sucking off of our sun to the great now because it's getting closer in the vicinity, right?
That's a good theory. I go with that.
So are we just seeing these effects continue to compound? Not sure.
Again, I agree, and it's not when we don't really see when you see the magnetosphere cuts when they start to get affected. That means something's close enough to affect us magnetically. The solar wind, by the way, is one to see a little bit. Whenever like I hear a VP talking about ACE, I always like the way he puts it. Is that it's like it's like our early warning system, if you will, to tell us when things are spiking, and things are spiking, right?
Yeah, they are.
It's interesting to me because it shows the flux of the northern and hemisphere potential, electrical potential, difference of potential. And again, it's just going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's not any kind of a smooth flow of any kind. It's just like, it seems like it's just like on a, I don't know, it's on a roller coaster.
Well, and what's very interesting, look at the peaks. It's hitting new peaks. The last reading over on your right.
Almost 100.
Yeah.
And again, it's just showing that there's a lot of electricity, a lot of magnetic force going around us, which kind of brings us back to the Venus thing again, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. Venus, guys, I don't care what you say. I have been around this. I've been on this planet for 52 years. I have been watching the sky since I was a child. I've always known where Venus was. I have never seen Venus this bright before. I'm just telling you, I've never seen it. And any of the old timers out there, what's really bothering me right now, Wayne, is how they're trying to convince us all that it's normal. Okay.
Well, I'm going to tell our listeners as well is that we have some subscribers that are giving us some really good information. And by the way, I just want to say thank you to all of you. You know who you are.
Yeah.
A couple of you have really did some pretty big data dumps on us, so it's going to take us a little bit to go through it. But yeah, Steve, you're getting to your point. We're getting military people that were back in the military in the 60s, in the 70s. I have one that was back in the 50s that are saying, y'all ain't getting it. There's something going on, and you're looking at it.
Yeah, and we're trying our hardest to get at you guys, with our limited brain, capacity, at least me. And trust me, man, I'm not trying to be a know-it-all, but if nobody else is going to talk about this is the biggest news story in the history of mankind, okay? And we fancy ourselves to be a kind of a news entertainment channel. We don't want to get labeled as fake news because that seems like it's going to be the scarlet letter here pretty soon. And
you mean censorship?
Right, censorship. Exactly right. When you start saying who are we going to say is fake news and not, you might as well just go back to Hitler Germany and go put your Nazi thing on and put your Nazi uniform on and go march right up to Goebbels and be part of his propaganda ministry. Because you don't have the right to say what's fake or not. That was why we put the First Amendment in place.
When Mark Zuckerberg begins to think that he is now going to become the demigod of what is classified as news, I don't think so. Quite frankly, you can kiss my butt on that. I'm old enough to be able to discern between what is real, what is not, and particularly, it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. We all interpret and receive what we want to. My God, can you imagine growing up, Steve, if they would have said people like Rod Sterling, that, because he was creative and would create vignettes and stories off of day-to-day events, right? And be classified that as fake news.
Or we had a time in America where just because you went to a communist meeting or a socialist gathering or gathered with socialists or supposedly had something to do with socialists, that made you a pariah. And then our country, if you don't think our country's done it before, I can point right to this. They ostracized and banned hundreds of writers and creative people because they said, with no due process, that they were communist. Number one, when did it become illegal to be a communist in the United States? And number two, when did it become legal for us to suppress people because of their beliefs? When did that happen?
And isn't that what's happening right now? So, Mark Zuckerberg, here's a message for you. Learn from the past. Quit trying to be something you're not. You're a social platform. It's entertainment.
Right.
It is not news. It will never be news. If you want to go to news, you can go to the mainstream boys and then, feed on their crap, or you can come to other places where at least we can have the opportunity to say, hey, you decide.
Right. So we're showing you this information so well, first of all, there's a whole group of people that have been believing and knowing that this stuff existed in our universe, in our solar system for a long time, that people called crazy, that they called them lunatic, that had been ostracized. The first purpose of WSO is to let you know, no, you're not. You're not crazy.
No,
you just observed something that other people are not willing or ready to accept that is happening. And then number two, it's like there is no good central source where somebody can go through and just ask questions about the data. We've got a lot of people that are didactically saying, this is what's happening and that is what's happening. WSO doesn't say that. WSO says, here's something we're observing. What the hell is it?
And many times we don't know.
Most of the time we don't know. But at least we're talking about it. At least we're having a dialogue about it. And if it means that there's going to be changes and earth changes and things like that, I want to know about it. I want to know about it before it happens. And that's what we do.
Well, and this is how we learn. I mean, I remember going out on a maneuver, and, when you go out in an environment where you're dropped in the middle of nowhere, and you've got just basically what is given on your back, the thing about it is you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You are. But you're going to learn real quick from those mistakes. And it's the same process here. We're witnessing things in the sky. Listen, Steve, I read yesterday that they are developing a spy technology, ready for this, to where they're going to fly a plane at about 60,000 feet. It will emit a laser beam that's going to use the Earth's atmosphere as a parabolic lens, that when they shoot this into the atmosphere, it begins to spread out on both sides, and they begin to see they can collect data in that way. I stepped back and I said, how much crap you and I took when we were trying to explain to people how the Earth's atmosphere works both as a convex and a convex lens, right?
Right.
And it defies understanding, because how can it do both? But it does. So my point is,
what this really points to, as this thing starts to heat up and all the stories come out and everything like that, Wayne. And by the way, this is something that Wayne and I are talking about doing, and we'd love to get your comments below and tell us what you think. But we think that it's time for a daily talk radio show that talks about the universe, that talks about the galaxy, that talks about what's going on in the solar system, and then grounds that to current events. We really think it's time. What do you think, Wayne?
Oh, absolutely. And listen, Steve, I think it is time for a format where we can then tie in listen, I'm doing a video now over on my channel, of which, Steve, you can share with your viewers as well, is that on the cracks that are opening up, not just down in Antarctica and South America, Africa, but all over. And those are relevant because it affects all of us. And that's just one of a myriad of different topics that you and I will be talking about.
Well, I think you can just think of all the different topics we can talk about. Like, for example, what is the impact of all these earthquakes on the economy of Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
Does anybody talk about that? What happens to shipping because the Solomon Islands has a 7.0 earthquake every day?
Well, and then the fact that you can't keep the infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the weather impact here in Idaho as an example, okay? Idaho hasn't suffered the kind of winter that they're suffering right now since that some are telling me since 1913 or 1919. And back in 1919, we didn't have such a huge reliance on infrastructure as we do today. Okay, you could just ride your horse or whatever, right? Now it's like if the roads are snow filled, you can't drive. Well, literally hundreds and thousands of people or thousands of people around Idaho and Boise cannot get back and forth to work right now because there is no way to remove the snow here because they're not used to getting snow, and the temperatures are so cold. I was talking to a gas line worker the other day, and he was telling me that they are on alert 24/7, that they get like hundreds of calls a day just because the infrastructure is not set up for the cold, so they have to go out and replace all these seals all the time just to keep things operating. So do you think that if you don't think that space weather has an impact on your daily life, then you're not paying attention?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just like we said about the cosmic rays, I mean, we're going to get medical science is catching up with it. So this is what makes things relevant.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're always gonna be delving into the spiritual side of this stuff. And I think the first thing that we say about our spirituality, and I'm not going to try to come off as Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or anything else. I'm just saying one thing. We as a species, okay, as a species, the human race, have been torn apart by these types of events, combined with power bases that want us to fight each other for millennia, okay? And if we could just get to the point where we stop fearing and started to understand and be kind to one another, could we change the result from this to be a situation where we're put on our asses for another 1,000 or 2,000 years to one where maybe we can recover more quickly if something happens?
Yeah. Well, I'm right there with you. And I think that is, for me, it's the biggest change in my life, is that I suddenly realized that we're a species. We have races, but our species has been under attack. And we, for so many millennia, so long, in fact, Steve, we have forgotten that we are, as a species, a sovereign species. We don't think of ourselves that way.
We don't. We always think of ourselves as having to answer to somebody.
Well, I'm either male, female, I'm either white, Caucasian, or I'm Latino. I'm either Christian or I'm Muslim. I'm either AB, RH positive, R, and I can go on with this. I'm an American. I am, this, and this is the thing I'm so sick of. I'm sick of hearing what you are. What we are forgetting is that we are a species. We are united. And Steve,
we're a species, but we're not united.
We're not.
Yeah, and
no, we're not.
The question has to be, why? Just for a second, I want you to question the core belief, especially my Christian brothers and sisters. Okay, why would you be intimidated by nation walls falling down and war ending and people coming together as one species? Why is that a bad thing? Why would God be mad at us if we built another tower? Why would God get mad at us if we were trying to come together as a species and claim our sovereignty in this universe? Why would God get mad at us about that? I don't get it. What kind of a loving God would want to crack us apart and make us kill each other?
Well, throughout our history, we have certainly spilled enough of our blood.
And it's always, or a very good amount of the time, it's in the name of your God.
Always.
And what's up with that? Why doesn't anybody just stop and question this stuff, Wayne? I don't. Why do we feel like we're committing blasphemy if we look at God and say, I don't buy this lie anymore? Please explain it to me.
Well, it's like I challenged you, Steve, and I challenge everyone. Is God a Christian?
Or is God a Muslim?
Is God a Jew?
Is he Hindu?
Is he Buddhist? Is he Taoist?
And as
Is
soon
he
as,
atheist?
yeah, as soon
Is
as,
he agnostic?
right, yeah, right. If you label God that way, then it's no God at all.
Well, you've just separated yourself, and that's the problem. You know, people get all wrapped around the axle and going, "Oh, you know, you're preaching universalism." I'm not preaching anything. I'm saying that if you're saying God is a Christian, then you've just eliminated the rest of 5 billion plus people on the planet. That's crazy.
Right, and that's always been my problem with the born again idea is that automatically when you say that if I have to go through this formula in order to be accepted by God, right, and I accomplish that formula, and by the fact that it's a formula that a huge percentage of people are not going to find that formula just because of ignorance, no way that they could have found the information. All those things. I remember in Bible school, they could never answer my question: is the person in the rainforest that's never heard the gospel going to heaven?
Would he want to go to heaven?
Who?
He
Yeah.
doesn't
First of
know
all,
you.
I won't even go there. Number two, right? Number two, it's like, did I just condemn? Think about this for a second. Does your belief system condemn 90% of the rest of the world? I would say that's a God I don't want to serve.
It's just
I'll put it
crazy.
right out there. I'm not serving a God that's sending 90% of the world to hell. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. You know what? I've told you before this. I have some very dear Jewish friends. I have some Hindu friends. And you know what? They're lovable people. I love them. Gracious, kind, considerate. And many times I have sat in a room and thought, why would I think my God is, or at least my perception of my God and my theology, so superior to those two? It's not. Because they'll tell you, a Hindu will tell you, they kind of just grin when, you talk about Christianity, because Christianity is the new kid on the block. They've been around for much longer, been around longer than.
Oh yeah, their gods have been incarnating as human beings for thousands of years.
Yeah, this is what I tell about Christians. I go, are you serious? So let me just see. So you're telling me that suddenly we had this whole shift, and because we'll get into this more, Steve, in future programs. But the bottom line of it is this: when will we learn that the person across the street is just as much a part of me as I am of them?
Right. And if you want to know where WSO bottoms out on theology is, God is love, God is peace.
And he's real.
Right, and he's real. So creator is real, okay? But creator, in other words, it's not saying God is love as much as love. It's a pronoun, like he, she, love.
Yeah.
God is love. Creation is love. Love and peace go together. And that's whenever you find yourself repenting of your sins or feeling bad about what you've done, and you feel yourself turning towards God, if you will, what you're turning back to is you're turning back to the true nature as God, as love. And if we're created in God's image, which I believe we are, then that means that our best place is when we are in love. That's our highest ideal place to be. So if you're ever wondering what I believe, that's what I believe.
Well, I'll just add that when people tell me that we've been created in God's image, I need to let them know as well that there are many other species that are not of this terrestrial place that have been created in his image as well. And it may not be that they're such as we are, that stand upon two legs. The point is that if God is love, and the fact that his wisdom is beyond any comprehension, then I think it's so one-dimensional that you would say, well, that God looks like you and I do. I think he's going to look like exactly what he wants to create.
Which is basically what we see.
Exactly. That's the point. Steve, I was thinking about this yesterday. You and I and all the listeners here, we cannot see our face. You only see your face when you see it reflected. And so when you talk, you can't see your facial expressions. You can't see how your eyes are moving. Why? Because it's the soul within you of that body. And if we start beginning to look at each other like that, things will begin to change, Steve. They will.
I think that's a good place to end it, everybody.
I have one thing I'll end it with. So
Okay. Yep.
Here's the problem why I don't believe in the Big Bang theory. Because by the physics of the principles of the Big Bang theory, there would have never been a universe created. There would have been an immense black hole. So how did the universe start?
I think that's a great place to end it, everybody. We'll talk to you more tomorrow from WSO. Signing off. I hope you all have a good day.
Y'all have a good one.